Hey, John Gilroy here. The NFL spends millions of dollars in evaluating candidates. Today, we're going to evaluate a different kind of a candidate. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Jun Choi, Senior Vice President of Human Capital Services at a company called Kentro, Kentro, and that's Kentro.us. Jun, how are you?
Great. Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
You don't look like a 300-pound football player, and neither do I. But, they pay millions of dollars evaluating, 6'5" guy who can jump up on top of a dining room table and do all these amazing stunts. But I think from a federal technology perspective, we're trying to evaluate candidates, see if they have good talents, see if they can help the federal government reach their goals, maybe work with other people. And that's why I want to bring in someone like you because, I'm in the classroom all the time. I'm talking to people. I'm talking to this. But you're the person, really, you're evaluating talent and trying to help them out. And what I want to accomplish here is you give our listeners what you're looking for when you interview someone and maybe some guidelines for what about the next 5 years? I mean, should you even finish your degree? Or should you get, certificates? Or how should you prepare for this fast-changing world we're in? And speaking of change, when I first met you, your company was IT Concepts. Now your company is Kentro. So what happened?
Yes. So we were known as IT Concepts before, and we actually just completed a rebranding effort just this last month. And we are now Kentro, which really kind of marks a significant milestone for our kind of company's evolution. So, we started out as a small business, and we're pretty much graduated from this, small business services disabled veteran-owned company that started about 20 years ago. So we were built kind of on this, digital modernization capability, really focused on customer service, demonstrating our value in a very deliberate way. And we were known for our kind of innovative processes, team of experts, and a culture of driven to deliver. And our CEO, Pinakin Patel, with his executive leadership team, built this company from ground up and created a culture of work hard, play hard, which sounds simple, but is a company that people kind of really want to work for. And the reason why I'm here today as well. As a result, Kentro has grown really fast the past 3 to 4 years with a strong foundation of very talented people. And I've only been here for about a year now and been very impressed with the talent from leadership to the individual contributors from day one that you typically see in large businesses like, Accenture, Deloitte, Booz, Northrop Grumman, and GDIT of the world. And I've been at a few of those companies that I just listed as well. But great journey. And, Kentro, is a Greek word, which means center or at the core. And hence, it really speaks to our core position where customer challenges meet cutting edge capabilities and leading edge expertise. And it really tells the story of alignment of a place where mission and solution kind of converge to create a clear path to progress. And that's why we say we are Kentro at the core of more.
Well, I love categorizing things and putting things in a grid and a whiteboard and putting things in I'm trying to categorize. Okay, what category you put them in? Well, you see, digital modernization. I mean, what's Gartner say about you guys? He'll put you in 10 categories.
So good question. So, there are some core areas that we focus on. So, infrastructure modernization. So things, around supporting your, cloud migrations, your network, right? Cybersecurity. We also focus in data and AI services. Again, AI, everyone, is talking about AI. So naturally, we do provide AI services as well. Health IT, and then of course, human capital services. And that's the area that I focus in.
Well, there's the core, Kentro. The core of the discussion is human beings. Everyone says people, process, technology, and I start with people, and the people is the key here. And now I got some questions about this thing. I live in a small town, and we were out with some friends the other night and talking about their daughter, and their daughter just got admitted to Penn State University. And wow, it's wonderful. And she's going to major in cybersecurity. And I turned to her and said, well, what's the curriculum going to be like in 4 years? I mean, real. We have June. Hey, June, that's what I want you to do. Write on a piece of paper or curriculum 4 years from now. I don't know how you can. It's so much change, isn't there?
Absolutely. So in today's kind of rapid and evolving environment with the emergence of AI, it's even more critical kind of to recruit and find talent, not necessarily for a specific position. So, even though a student wants to learn cybersecurity, you really have to possess kind of multiple skills, right? You kind of need to know how to think outside the box and really be problem solvers. And more importantly, possess kind of that culture of, I want to embrace change, willing to adapt, right? A lifelong learner, and really have a growth mindset. I think this new environment that we live in, will continue to change, right? Technology continues to advance, it evolves over time, and the reality is it will be less defined as far as specific roles and functions. So, I think I read it somewhere. About 80% of today's jobs are probably going to be affected by AI. And predicting that future type of jobs will be an ongoing challenge. So therefore, I mean, we really want to change how we hire talent in the future. And it's no longer going to be based on those kind of traditional positions and job descriptions, that we're used to, right? And, I really like this, quote by Adam Toffler: "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn."
Yeah, the young people don't know Alvin Toffler and Future Shock from 1970. That's an old book, but it's a fun. I have all kinds of quotes here in front of me, ready for you too.
Great.
Let's focus on finding talent. Now, I look at you and I go, this guy, he looks like he's sitting in there and he's real, but he's in the middle of a storm. I mean, if you look at what June has to do, he is in a very, very rapidly changing technical environment. If you were working for a donut shop in Chicago, and it's rapidly changing with artificial intelligence and all kinds of sensors, but the deal with the federal government, which guess what, is another storm. So it's like a storm within a storm. It's like, hey, are we out of the woods? No, there's another storm on the horizon. So what you have to do is you have to hire into an environment where the technology is rapidly changing and, how to put this discreetly, the application for that environment is going to be rapidly changing too. You may be in situations where there's not as many people as expected. And so what rudder do you use? Do you use just when you interviewed someone, you say, well, this person has come from a good school and has adapted to different things? Or so what's the guidepost you use for evaluation of people for talent these days?
So, we can talk for hours about this. So let me first address kind of, this environment, right, of change, in the government, and we can talk about, so how long do we have, John?
5 hours.
So the changes, you're describing, we are faced kind of in a unique period, right? Especially now with AI and, human capital being front and center, right? With the changes in the government globally, and especially with kind of the limited resources and budget to achieve everything at the same time, and people want it today or yesterday, right? That need for speed. So, the changes, what, we're faced with at Kentro is, impacting not only us, but our customers at the whole across the government, our vendor partners, right? Which is large, is huge, our teammates, colleagues, friends, and family, right? So we are sensitive to how the changes are impacting everyone, around us. And, we've weathered some major and minor impacts over our long history. But our core beliefs remain steady. I mean, we are here still to serve our country, our customers, in ways that align with our capabilities to drive value and efficiency in government operations, and really to make a positive impact in the lives of American citizens. So our dedication to the mission and customer service remain aligned to, to these agencies to address these challenges and changes that we're faced with. And we're focused on that clear outcome-driven approach to challenge the status quo, drive process improvements and efficiencies through innovation with people, process, and technology, right?
Oh, there's the people again.
Yes, there's the people again. So, we at Kentro are looking for ways to do things differently, achieve more with less in a competitive environment. And we've seen this kind of heightened level of competition, and competition is good because it drives innovation in the end. However, it is our people and human capital that still remains the greatest asset for us, even with the advancements in technology and AI. So kind of circling back to now, what do we look for? Well, I would say we look for people kind of broadly as far as all their skills. It's not you have to major in one specific subject. We definitely want problem solvers who can, you know, who has this growth mindset, who's willing to adapt to change because no one can really predict the future, right? I mean, we can make our best guesses, but if you look short term and try to hire and recruit people for the short term, it may hurt you in the long run. So now I think it is that evolution of how you really recruit, but more importantly, also how you develop your talent, right? Because you still have a workforce, and again, we're faced in this unique environment or period where we have a multi-generational workforce that spans four, even maybe five generations, right? The way they approach work, life, and how they embrace change and technology, it's all different. So, it's trying to figure that out. And you want that individual to have that right growth mindset. And more importantly, align with your culture, right? And that's what we look for when we, hire people today.
So, June, I was kind of silly and I did the opening about the NFL, but what the NFL does is they'll evaluate someone and they'll say, okay, what is Jun Choi's time in the 40-yard dash? How many times can he bench press 225 pounds? And they have these little check marks and they evaluate people that way. Okay, let's apply it to your job. So someone applies to you, they have a degree from Dartmouth in computer science, or they have a degree from a different school, or someone may have some certificates from the SANS Institute. What about these certificates? I mean, some people are saying, forget that, $200,000 bachelor's degree. Just get a job at 18 and find out. And this is what John Pescatori from the Science Institute will say. Well, jump in and find out certificates you need and get to training as you're doing it. So where do you come down on that? And what value do you see in that?
Right. No, great question. So, in many cases, I would say, practical experience often outweighs formal education. While a traditional four-year degree, provides that foundational knowledge, right? I think having that hands-on experience, whether it's with some of these AI, tools or large language models, and more importantly, being able to solve real-world problems, right, is critical. So, in an ideal situation, right, having both the formal education and certifications combined with the hands-on, practical experience really kind of sets a candidate apart. And then also, having that traditional education that, we're so accustomed to, right? That's kind of, where my generation really kind of focused on is you need a four-year, college degree, right? In the future, it may not be required, right? For some roles, and with the advancements in AI, one can become an expert in almost any field or domain, right? For example, one can be a software developer or a data analyst, with an AI assistant. Imagine an AI agent, right, as a colleague, or better yet, everyone having a team of AI agents, that work for you and, can specialize in almost any subject matter that you can imagine, right? And based on the functional role that you may be performing in any given hour or day of the week, since, we may no longer fill just one role in an organization, right? But then, I'll kind of circle back to what I said earlier, right? I think what could trump education and practical experience is having that growth mindset, aligning to the company's culture, including possessing some of those softer skills that I talked about earlier, problem-solving skills, having the curiosity and desire to learn and experiment with new things. Because in today's age, right, things are changing so rapidly. You have to be ready for change. I think that is going to be the one constant going forward in the future is change. Yeah. And, like I mentioned, we are in an environment where we have a multi-generational workforce. So, how they embrace change and new technologies and just the way you approach work, you have different, ways of how people grew up and being able to adapt, understand what motivates them, right? I think it's going to be critical. And for that alignment with the culture of your company is paramount.
It almost sounds like two lawyers talking. Well, it depends. Well, it depends. I mean, it's just it's such a fluid environment, and I've known the Sans people since the early '90s when Alan started, Alan Paler, and I know they do great certificates. And I'm sure that if you walked in and I said, "Well, you got a certificate from Sans," well, he must know about that quantum or encryption, whatever you want. However, and June, hold on to your hats here. Sans Institute is now a fully accredited university. You can offer a university degree because they found out that's what their students wanted. And so maybe they interviewed people like you and said, well, how come you didn't hire Gilroy, June? Well, we liked everything about him, but the boy didn't have those letters after his name. And so this is like the most it depends interview in the world, but it's going to vary. And I think it's important to have this culture thing. And I keep thinking of philosophy majors. When I was in college, philosophy majors were the most flexible. The table is there. The table isn't there. Tell me, prove to me the table's there. It seems like maybe the philosophy major will be in demand with maybe a math minor, because there's so many concepts to being. If you talk about quantum communications, just conceptually here, there's some topics here that if you have a rigid mindset, you might as well get a job at McDonald's.
And you're spot on, John. So what you just pointed out, I think, you want a workforce that have different backgrounds, very diverse in the way they think. So in order to even come up with something innovative, new, you have to think differently. So you don't want people that are all the same, right? All, let's say, and I'll use this as an example. You don't want a room of all Java developers, right? You want people that can think differently, have different, backgrounds and experience to ultimately, solve a problem in ways that we never imagined. And that's the type of talent that we really need to cultivate, develop, and bring to bear, because that will advance the needle in the future for us because of the environment that's so dynamic, fluid, rapidly changing. And the need to really solve problems quickly requires a lot of different, people with different backgrounds and skill sets and experiences.
So, June, here's a practical question. So I've been doing this, since forever, since Ben Franklin. And, for the last decades, no one's ever asked me to get their kid a job, because kids in tech, they get jobs all over the place. In the last 8 months, I've had two of my friends, we're having coffee or something, and they go, hey, listen, my son is kind of looking for a job, and he's got this tech background. I go, what? Yeah. And it's like, well, really, what's going on? And so my advice to them, I talked to 5 CEOs. I said, hey, so I got a friend here with his son. His name is June, and he's a pretty solid kid, and he needs a job. And all 5 of them said, well, that's great. What that kid should do is he should go train himself in AI on his own and learn as much about it as he can and be very conversant with it and fluent with it. Because if he's going to interview someone like June, that's the kind of questions he's going to know. Well, how much have you learned on your own? It's almost like it's and the categories are so careful. I mean, so carefully defined about that. So is that the kind of questions you ask? You go, well, Mr. Gilroy, you're interviewing for this job now. What have you have you trained on your own? I get it. You got to ask that question, don't you?
So personally, I think there's definitely several approaches to how to recruit people, right? If there's a specific role that's more tactical, that you have a contract or a project that requires certain skill sets, you definitely want to make sure they have a competency or have some skill in performing that task, right? But more broadly speaking, the way we conduct interviews in many cases is more about how they solve or tackle problems, right? It's not necessarily the end result, but how do you ask the right type of questions to inform you on evaluating potential solutions to solve a problem. And it's more about the process. So it's more of a case study. So we would, potentially give them a problem set. And we're more interested on how they think, their problem solving skills versus, oh, by the way, I really need to know how to program some, AI tool, right? Or some large language model, how to, train the model, or it's less of that per se, unless it's very specific and it's more tactical for a specific assignment, right? Otherwise, you really want to have candidates that can think, kind of like I said, going back to, that growth mindset, being able to, be problem solvers, think kind of outside the box. Don't be very rigid in the way you approach things. So that's the type of characteristics and skill sets that I think ultimately we're looking for, because, regardless of what the hot technology or language is, it may change, right? And then also, I think the other part that, and I think more importantly about what you were talking about, do we want to see if candidates have initiative or drive to be that life learner? So it's not about knowing Python or knowing that I took some classes. It's the fact that they did. They want to learn new tools. That's more important than, oh, by the way, I'm an expert in Python,
Yeah.
right?
Back to the NFL. So the NFL, they have defensive linemen that are, I don't know, 340 pounds. And they have kickers, and the kickers, like my size, maybe 5'9" and not that big. And so there's different skill sets. And I noticed that Kentro does a wide range of activities, everything from infrastructure modernization, where someone may actually have to know about cables and wiring. And they do data and AI services, which is one specific, may have to know about containers or something. But with cybersecurity, I think that's a different hat you got to put on. I think if someone's going to understand attack and defense for cybersecurity, that's like a street fighter or someone who's really been out there, and that skill set, it's tactical, but it's a whole different interview set, isn't it? And it's like, this type of situation is so fluid and quick, and I guess is the word informal knowledge, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, not like I said, there are exceptions and there are specific types of functions or roles that will remain, kind of in that traditional sense that you're trying to describe, right? Because they're very technical in nature. However, I think that is still changing with AI, and there are tools
Yeah.
that will disrupt some of those domains as well. So, I think, in many cases, and, again, I wish I had a crystal ball, but I do believe almost every job, role, or function, even cybersecurity, those roles will evolve and change, especially with the advancements in AI and other technologies. So the type of actual technical skills may be less important, because you could create a model or an AI agent to perform some of those, cybersecurity tasks. But what they may need instead is, how would potential, hackers think differently to break into your network that no one has thought about,
Yeah. Good, good,
right?
good. Well, you have a crystal ball. Well, you have to find one real quick, because I'm asking you a question about the future. So, optimistic, pessimistic. I mean, you've been through 2008. Those tough times. I mean, there's tough times 9/11, 2008. There's tough times with COVID, and Jun's still there. He's eating every day, and so you survived it. And so, what about the next 4 or 5 years? Well, there's a lot of changes downtown. We know that. I mean, this is obvious. And so, people going to, you think there's going to be much disruption or kind of just adaptation? Or so, tell me about the next 5, 7 years. What do you think's going to be going on technically in the government?
So I'm a, half glass full kind of guy. So I'm very optimistic, right? And, I've always been kind of that technologist, right? That nerd, right? That likes new things, new technologies. And I think where we are today, especially with the advancements in technology and how rapidly, people are adopting AI, not only within the government, right, but just globally, right? So, I think just the mere fact that, the pace of innovation, the pace of embracing new technologies, and I would say, there's only been, a handful of real, like, major changes as a result of technology, right? One, of course, being, the internet, right? AI, I think, is one of them, right? And it's definitely disrupting how we work, right? How we interact with people, as well as now kind of AI agents. And so, I am very optimistic in the next 5 to 7 years. Again, the changes we're seeing today, right now, it's definitely, there's still some unknowns, but it will stabilize. And some of these things I think are needed change, right? I mean, I think, whether it's government, commercial, we all want to improve process, drive efficiencies, right? We want to be fiscally responsible, right? Because if it was your own dollar, how would you spend it, right? So
Yeah.
in that sense, I think we're going to go through a period of kind of stabilization, but then there will be an opportunity for those that really want to innovate, drive change, and ultimately it's about delivery and execution, right? Everyone can come up with great ideas, but now what AI enables you to do is scale and implement at a greater velocity than ever before. And that's kind of where I'm very optimistic. And I think there are things that we can solve very quickly that we could not do before in the past.
Well, I like optimism, I like to close on a happy note. That's great. Well, what I'll do is in the show notes, I'll put a link to your company, kentro.us, in case you want to maybe contact you, maybe see what's going on there. There's all kinds of stuff going on at their website. And we are unfortunately running out of time here. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Jun Choi, Senior Vice President of Human Capital Services at Kentro, Kentro. Thank you, Jun.
Thank you, John. Have a great day.